Welcome to Press Play, the StreetCred Podcast with Elena Krasnow, yours truly, and Jimmy Moock from StreetCred PR. In this podcast, Jimmy and I will welcome industry leaders, journalists, influencers, and friends of the firm to shed some light on who they are and the various twists and turns that led them to where they are today. We're grateful to have you listening in, and we hope you enjoy the show. Hey y'all, I'm Elena, and I'm so grateful you're here. I'm the marketing manager of StreetCred PR, and here with my co-host, Jimmy Moock, who is the managing partner. And we're so excited for the pod today. We have Greg Bartalos with us, who is the editor-in-chief of Barron's Wealth and Asset Management Group. He was previously the editor of Institutional Investors RIA Intel, which he helped launch in 2019. And he also was editor-in-chief of Barrons.com and has worked at Yahoo Finance and Bloomberg News. What a resume, Greg. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thanks so much for having me on. Love your podcast. So I'm definitely thrilled to be here. Thank you.
Oh my gosh. Well, if you love the show, then you know exactly what we want to talk about first.
I do.
Yes.
I do. But I don't want to steal your thunder. Go ahead.
Yeah. So what did you have for lunch today?
All right. I will tell you with great specificity what I had.
Oh boy.
Yeah. So,
Jimmy's excited.
all right, here we go. Drum roll. No. It was a hero, toasted, lightly buttered, scrambled eggs, cheddar cheese, and red onions. And pretty awesome. So it hits the spot. It's kind of, I had it very early lunch, but yeah, it kind of hits it satisfies.
I'm a big fan of every single one of those ingredients. Yes,
Nice.
Jimmy.
Okay, so red onions,
Mm-hmm.
but egg sandwich?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know. I'm a red onion fan. It just seems to be, I eat it, quite often. So yeah.
And when you
Pickled or raw?
It was a good question because I got it at the deli and the guy asked me, he really was on the ball. He needed to get that detail right. And I said, it can be okay raw.
Okay.
So if we were doing this in person, I don't know about the onions, but yeah. So,
seeded roll or plain?
it was plain, but if it was
Okay.
seeded, that would not have been an issue. I would have, gleefully left the deli just the same.
Okay. Well, just so you know, I oftentimes will have lunch for breakfast. So breakfast for lunch, we're in the no judgment zone here, Greg.
Absolutely.
So
Exactly.
I fully support it.
Breakfast is
Now-
loosely defined.
But
Yeah.
what you do need to know is that I'm from a part of the East Coast where we don't use the word hero. It's
Is it hoagie? Hoagie.
It's hoagie. Yes,
Yeah,
correct. Yeah.
Yeah. Well
So-
aware of that.
One other question.
Yeah.
It seems like the country is split when it comes to whether or not ketchup goes on eggs or egg sandwiches. Where do you
Mhm.
fall there?
Oh man, it's not even close. There's never been any deliberation on my mind for my whole life. The answer is no ketchup.
Wow. All
I
right.
would
Yeah.
definitely
Is
agree
there
with
a
you
pro-
on sandwich, but I would eat ketchup with scrambled eggs
Really?
separately. Mhm.
Really?
But
My
not on a
goodness.
sandwich. That sounds weird.
So,
Well,
Jimmy, is
well-
that like, par for the course where you are? I mean, I know it's a popular thing in much of America, but I don't know what the breakdown is exactly.
It might just be a family thing. I don't know.
Mhm.
Like, I'm sure I have neighbors that hate ketchup on eggs, but let me tell you, I'm not eating eggs unless there's ketchup, and it doesn't matter
Okay.
if they're scrambled, if it's a fried egg, sunny side up, an omelet, you name it.
Well, I have one non-negotiable rule when it comes to eggs, and I do love them, is I refuse to eat them unless they're accompanied by bread. It has to be toast, a roll, a bagel, but if it's just eggs on a plate, I will walk away. It's really bizarre, and it's my own hang up I got to get over. But
I can understand that. Eggs are weird for a lot of people, honestly. There's sort of a controversial texture vibe,
oh,
but
totally. Like I won't eat sunny side eggs. I won't eat fried eggs. Scrambled
Yeah.
and omelet, the only two that are
I
no
can't do
go.
too runny of a yolk either. I'm just
Yeah,
like,
no,
that feels-
exactly. Yeah, just flip it a little more. Yeah, or scramble it a little more, whatever.
I'm with you.
So, yeah.
Well, we have a ton we want to talk about with you today. Thank you again for coming
Sure.
on with
We're not going to
us.
talk about food the whole time?
I mean, we'll try to
Well, we
sprinkle
could,
it in
but-
as much as possible,
Sure.
honestly.
Okay. Alrighty.
You're an incredible writer, so I'm sure you'll be able to weave in some powerful onion and ketchup analogies. But We want to just start, Greg, with your
Mhm.
background. Like, take us back as far as you want and tell us what inspired you to get into financial journalism and how
Mhm.
you eventually wound up at Barron's.
Sure. So I'm going to go way back, but I'm going to try to keep the arc, moving along so it doesn't bore you to tears. I grew up in Westchester County, two brothers, and I always was attracted to sounds and words. Those were my thing.
Mm.
And I remember as a kid, like my favorite toy, if you will, it was like a sound effects machine. And I kind of saw it though as an instrument because you can exert some control over it and do cool stuff. And about 45 years ago, I lent it to my friend Mark Richmond, and he never returned it. And Mark, if you're hearing this, I want that thing, if he still has it in the attic or something. But I later learned that I was colorblind. That is news to me later in life, and then it kind of made sense that I probably was not seeing the colors the way everyone else does, so I gravitated towards sound and words.
Mm.
And then as I got older, it just seemed clear that I had a real aptitude more for words than music and sounds, and that was and remains a passion, but there was no way I could earn a living with that. So I I also, as a kid, always had a love for newspapers. I was, it was really to read the sports box scores. I was a big Baltimore Oriole fan, and still am. And so that was like the first attraction point. As I got older, the rest of the newspaper became more interesting. Um, I went to college at Boston University, studied journalism, communications, communication theory, et cetera. And I was planning and assuming I was going to go into journalism, but I also enrolled in the school had a student-run advertising agency called AdLab. And basically, you would pick art or copywriting, and they would give you actual accounts. So it was a great experience. Um, and my account was the National Spinal Cord Injury Association, like in Waltham, Massachusetts or something. But what was cool about it is that they had Mike Greenwell, who was an up and coming baseball player then, agreed to do a PSA. So I spent literally half a year writing 30 seconds of text for him to say. So the day, yeah, it was weird. Yeah, so on the day of the filming, we went to Fenway Park and it was really cool. I got a press badge, press pass, which I still have signed by about half a dozen Red Sox players, and saw the filming of Mike Greenwell read this PSA. And it took him a while to nail it, but he nailed it. And that was kind of a fun meeting everyone. But the bigger point of the story is that once it aired on TV and I got my VHS copy, everything really became clear. And I was like, no, 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 no. I don't want to do advertising. I just found it somewhat absurd to put in half a year of time. Granted, I was a student and doing other stuff, but to have a 30-second item, and then it really, really clarified that journalism was more the direction.
That
Um,
makes sense.
yeah, and basically, I then graduated in 1990, and the economy was pretty bad in the early 90s. It was really tough, and I, what a lot of wannabe journalists did at the time is they would leave the big city and go to small markets and work at a small newspaper, get some great clips, learn, and work their way up. And I was a little bit, I guess, I don't know, impatient and headstrong, like, oh, I want to start doing it in New York City. But that was not easier said than done. So, but I was getting freelancing gigs at the same time. And then from 91 to 94, I got a full-time job and it paid extremely little. It's a company called Radio TV Reports. It was part of a company called Competitive Media Reporting. What they were, and the internet made this business basically obsolete as far as I know. They're a broadcast monitoring company. And what they did is they recorded all TV, all radio, 24/7, recording everything. And they had people transcribing every news item, every talk show. And then what would happen is their clients were primarily PR companies. And they would have a client, let's say, and there might have been a news segment on a client. And they'd be like, oh, we want to see that video, and they would be able to cut the tape for them, send it to them. And they did that for radio, and I was the audio guy, so I spent tons of time listening and editing and really immersing myself in the world of audio and news. So that that also leaned into the sound part, but it wasn't really gratifying. It wasn't a career. It was a way to get a paycheck and benefits. So after three until 94, then I was just like thinking I can do better than this. So I went to the CEO and I'm like, I'm quitting. Then I landed at WNYC Radio. They had a program on the media. It was like media critique and whatnot. So they hired me as an associate producer, and that was a lot of fun. And then I left them for my first real job in journalism, which was exactly 30 years ago. It was institutional investor. They had a bunch of newsletters at the time, and it was a little bit of a training ground. They hired people such as myself who were quite green, a little bit in over their head, and I was hired for a portfolio letter, which was the focus was on the stock market, and it was a little bit of a struggle at time, big learning curve, but eventually things worked out, and I'll revisit this story later, and you'll see why when I do. And then after that, I went to Bloomberg as a reporter, and then my subsequent jobs were all in an editorial capacity. Went to individual investor, Barron's, Yahoo Finance, Barron's, and RIA Intel, the main editor on that, which we launched, and then back to Barron's the third time, where I am right now. So that's kind of my long-winded tale. But I mentioned 30 years in my career, and 17 of the 30 have been at Barron's, although that was over three different times in my career. So
Wow.
yeah, hope it
What a
wasn't too
journey.
long-winded. Yeah, right?
Seriously.
Yeah.
First
So,
of all, Mark, if you're listening,
yeah,
Greg,
sound effect machine.
Greg wants a sound effect machine.
I don't even, I Googled it. I mean, I have a vague idea what it looks like. I have no idea the company ran. I mean, if I found it on eBay or whatever, even for like whatever, I was like, I need that thing, but
That's
it's
the kind
probably
of
ancient
thing
history.
you're like falling asleep at night and
Yeah.
suddenly it comes into your head
Right,
that you
right,
still
right.
don't have that and then
I
you can't
know.
sleep.
Exactly.
We're gonna tag him on LinkedIn, so we're gonna help you get your equipment back.
We're turning into a
Exactly.
true crime show to find Greg's
Right.
lost sound toy.
Hey, and there's a reward, okay? So,
One thing seriously I want to hit on, and I know I see it in Elena's face. She has follow-up questions, but I got to jump in here. I got started in PR in 1998. Do you remember Loose Press Clippings, Greg? Did you ever hear of that company, given your work in the radio transcribing?
it rings a very vague bell. I can't say though I
Okay.
do really well, but maybe.
So, junior account executive Jimmy, when he was working at Peppercom in 1998,
I
99,
remember that name. Yeah.
we we would have placements. There must have been there was this company Loose and others. Burrell's was another one
Hmm.
where they would read all the newspapers around the country and magazines. And let's say my client was Panasonic or Sony, which they were at the time at this company, and they would snail mail us the placements, cutouts of the stories of my clients' clips in envelopes. Every
Wow.
Friday, they would
Yeah.
show up at the office.
Wow.
And young Jimmy had to then play arts and crafts and take these clippings and paste them on a piece of white paper, like printer paper, and line them up so they're nice, bring them over to the copier, make copies, scan the copies, and then either fax or then snail mail my client's clipping.
Wow.
Yeah. So
Wow.
Elena, think about how much has changed and how easy the team has it now,
The
right?
coverage note of the 90s was not the same.
And Greg, I could totally appreciate. We would do the same thing for broadcast, right? There was no links. There was, 5 minutes after a TV hit. Right now, you are able to watch the segment. But those past days, my gosh, like it would take a week to show your client their television appearance, which is just it's mind-boggling now.
Yeah,
And
I mean no, totally. I mean, right now it is, but back then, obviously pre-internet, no one knew what the future held in store. So that was just like the accepted reality we all rolled with. But now it's like, oh man,
yeah, and
yeah,
another
yeah.
casualty, you might not have, it's not necessarily connected to your present or past,
Hmm.
but pre-COVID, if you had a client appearing on CNBC or Bloomberg, they would want the client to go in studio to an affiliate in their city. So if they're in Philadelphia, they would go to NBC in Philadelphia if they're doing a CNBC hit, or they would go to a satellite studio. Remember satellite studios?
Mm-hmm.
And it would be like there's one on Wacker Avenue in Chicago. And you would go there and you would appear on any channel. They would just send the satellite feed to that channel. Well, once COVID hit, those things obsolete. And now you could turn on TV, any channel, CNN, BBC, CNBC, Fox, and you'll just see that people are connecting to television now through Zoom. Like it has totally changed the game.
Right.
Yeah. And I had like great relationships with these people at satellite studios all over the country, just because I can't shut up sometimes, like right now is an example. But anyway, I love that backstory of yours and really appreciate you sharing that.
Oh, no. Awesome. Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
No.
Go ahead.
Yeah. No.
No, I'm just curious. So you had these 3 stints at Barron's.
Mm-hmm.
What was the special spark of working there that kept kind of pulling you back?
It's a great question. I think it's a combination of things. It's in no particular order, want to add here. The quality of the journalism is, it's incredible. I mean, the company's been around for over 100 years, 104 to be precise. And so, amazing journalism to begin with. Amazing people. The culture does a great job somehow of weeding out jerks. And there was just like a great vibe. I've worked in a number of companies. Some of them are pressure cookers. Some of them are chill, but then they're chill and don't have high standards. Mm-hmm. And Barron's Dow Jones really checks off a great many boxes. They have, fair comp, fair benefits. They're respected, all of that. And so I think that was part of the pull. And because it is a great place to work at, historically they have, somewhat limited turnover, so some faces will endure. I know a few people who've been there over 30, a number who've been there over 30 years and still do great work. And so it was all those things really. Yeah. And the location was great in Midtown, convenient to Grand Central and whatnot. But
totally.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, hitting that culture note perfectly makes such a difference and just calling you back and back.
Where was Barron's before 12/11?
We were in the World Financial Center.
That's right.
And after 9/11, we were displaced, and we temporarily were working in Midtown, I think where Wall Street Journal ad sales is, and then we moved to 1211.
Wow.
So yeah.
I think I remember the interim spot. It had like a small little Barron's sign underneath the Wall Street Journal ad sign. And one thing I will say about 1211 right now, I mean, that building is like pulsating. It is alive with like the lighting and the look and the feel. It's got a great cafeteria.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, very.
Sorry, thinking about lunch again.
It all comes back.
I mean, the cafeteria closes at 3, but if they had dinner, I'm sure it'd be great too. But
nice.
Yeah.
Well, as PR people, we're also curious if you have any PR horror stories from your years in journalism.
I mean, horror stories. I don't have anything titillating that hits that mark. I mean,
that's a good sign.
No, really nothing that hits that level. And there may have been, I may have just blocked it out of my memory. So I'm not saying it hasn't happened.
It's repressed.
It's repressed. Absolutely. But it's more little goofy small things like, hi, Jeffrey, but with a G, Geoffrey. I'm like, well, it starts my name. I don't even use Gregory, but if you did G and then you get Y, silly things like that. Or hi, TK, forgetting to update the text.
Oh, funny.
And then this is just more a small pet peeve, like, where sometimes PR people can resemble birds of prey. They're like circling back a 4th time or whatever. I'm like, it's a little bit overdone. We don't need to circling back stuff. I will say, however, that ordinarily I think that's counterproductive, but there was one instance not too long ago when someone did the circle back a few times, but they used different language. But it happened to be a fortuitous circle back where actually we needed things and the stars aligned. So I think there is and can be an element of serendipity, of luck, and timing is incredibly important and really hard
Yeah,
to predict. So there are no hard and fast rules. The answer is it depends. But yeah, sure, there are best practices about things to do and not do, I think.
totally.
Yeah.
Are you friendly with Jim Pavia?
I don't know him, but I know what he does on social media, and it cracks me up.
Yeah.
Very funny.
Well, yeah. I want to get this on your radar. And
Oh boy.
he's always joking about
Right.
what's PR people's infatuation with radars and whatnot.
I actually
Yeah.
can't use the word radar anymore. It's like forever tainted for me.
Right. Well, there is the one other thing which happens sometimes. It's not a, I just put it out there. I'm not sure exactly how to describe it, but on occasion, PR people will reach out and be like, obviously want to schedule a meeting, a face-to-face with our client. And sometimes you try to politely, artfully say, this is not really an ideal fit for whatever reason. And then sometimes they'll still want to push on regardless, while you're kind of saying, look, there's really a low probability that we're going to do a story or something. Like, yes, we'll meet, but the odds of success are quite low in terms of media placement. And I think though, if they do that and if such a meeting occurs, I think, the PR person gets the win, if you will, but the client likely thinks their odds of getting media placement are higher than
Yeah.
they actually are. So in the short term, it's good for the PR person. Longer term, I don't think it necessarily, serves the relationship. So
Hmm.
I think like, read the tea leaves. If the journalist is saying, um, I think though vis-a-vis the client though, if they manage expectations, say this seems a little bit like a long shot, and if they say, hey, all I want is a face-to-face, I don't care, then that's fine too.
Right.
But yeah,
Well, that
Yeah,
is, oh, Jimmy, go
I
ahead.
was just going to say I definitely see both sides of it.
hmm
If I'm getting static from a reporter and or a producer or a podcaster, and I sense that they don't want to, I'm not going to push that hard. But if I sense that they might be semi-interested, I do think that a face-to-face versus a phoner or an exchange, a delivery of a quote via email is still so much more powerful because you don't know where the conversation might go and you
yep,
don't know what common threads could be unearthed between the journalist and the source, provided that the PR person is pitching the right person to begin with and he's calling him Greg and not Jeffrey.
yeah, I totally agree with that. You're right. Yeah, yep.
Yeah. Well, I mean, let's dig into that a little bit
hmm
more. From your perspective as a journalist, Greg, what makes a pitch really stand out to you? And maybe like what are some of the trends that you're most excited about exploring right now?
Sure. So I definitely have clear opinions about, what constitutes and makes a pitch stand out. So um,
We want them.
okay, so just one person's opinion. So the first thing is, and some of this might be painfully self-evident, but at the risk of that, I'm just going to say it anyway. First thing is be relevant with the pitch. Know the publication, know the kinds of stories to write, know the angles. Demonstrate you understand what the publication's about. That's kind of a starting point, but you'd be amazed at how many PR people do not do this. So, like, it's interesting because me as a journalist, I see all the emails flying in. On your side, you're not necessarily super aware of what everyone else is doing. So you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I can say it's remarkably common. Number two, keep the pitches short. It seems the vast majority of pitches are longer than they need to be in my estimation. Um, you know, most journalists or editors are really, really busy. They're scrolling through their inbox, and if they see a wall of text, unless the subject matter really grabs them, it's like you kind of have two strikes against you at that point. But if you
Hmm.
keep it short, there's a correlation. The shorter the email, the greater the likelihood that the entirety of it will be read.
Totally.
It very clearly maps. And if you want to emphasize something, in a shorter email, you still can do it. You just have to make every word count, bold words, use links. There's a way to do it. But I think the
Hmm.
worst thing to do is blather on forever. The only benefit of that is, okay, you're being very comprehensive and you don't want to come across as superficial. So I do get where that's coming from. Maybe it's about striking a balance, you know?
Sure.
So another thing is, think like a journalist, and pitch accordingly, frame the stories accordingly. And that's, really important and easier said for someone who used to be a journalist, right? If you didn't, you can surmise what it's like, but think about, hooks, framing, what what is the conventional wisdom? What's the narrative? And what are you saying that's different and might advance the narrative? That's really important because if you're just you'd be shocked at how many emails we get for PR people representing advisors who are like, hey, talk to our advisor. He or she is like holistic planning and they do this
Mm-hmm.
as if that's revelatory. And it's like, no, this is table stakes. And if you're acting like this is some big deal and it's not helping anyone. So I think having your a pulse on what is conventional, what is the common base of understanding and how can you transcend that? How can you add value? That's really important and a little bit, harder to do than it seems. Um, no, another one is personalize your email. And I don't mean like, hi, Jeffrey or hi, Greg. And I don't mean either like what I'll often see a superficial thing where it'll be like, hey, I saw your story on ABC. Our client's doing the same thing. Meet him. And I'm like, okay, I'll give you a little bit of credit because you at least did a modicum of effort,
Tried.
a little
Yeah.
bit. But I think what would be really impressive is if you read that story that you referred to and maybe somewhere deep in the story pulled out a factoid or something that
Mm-hmm.
demonstrates that you truly read the whole damn thing. And if you bring that up, it's like, oh, okay, you went the extra, you
Totally.
put in extra effort, and that counts for something. It's no guarantee of anything. But I think that's really good. And another one is while you're in the terms of the personalizing, is trying to, you know the journalist a little, like if you're aware they have a passion, and if there's a way you can weave that in without making it like, I don't know, super obvious that it's like a transactional mercenary thing. Um, just trying to have a legit rapport. And
Totally.
it's hard. It's more like you know it when you see it, but I can't fully verbally describe what the ingredients of that are.
Mm-hmm.
And that goes with, I would say, mastering the art of genuine small talk. So it's not, perfunctory, but I don't know. Forging that relationship is key. But I think
Totally.
that
Yeah.
that goes a little together with what Jimmy was talking about, though, is like having the face-to-face meeting is huge, though, at the same time. So I do want to say that, like, if you can meet someone for a coffee, that's just, infinitely better than just doing everything behind, email and whatnot, because you remember those meetings, you remember the face and the vibe and the experience, and it's just more meaningful, even a half an hour coffee.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think if you can do that, but again, the caveat is what I said before, like if you're doing it and if the journalist is really reluctant, not ideal, but you're right, Jimmy, maybe you'll find some common bond and it'll work out okay. Um, and also be professional but not pushy. So there's a
Yeah.
fine line between, persistence and becoming annoying. And, that's contextual and everyone's threshold for that differs. And I'll just leave one more tip. And and that's simply no typos.
Yes.
Journalists, they judge. I mean, they'll be like, whatever. I mean, it's entirely in the hand of the PR person. You have spell check, you have time to put it out. So that's a small thing, entirely in your control. But yeah, just make sure your punctuation and whatnot when you pitch journalists
Yeah.
is up to
You're
snuff.
dealing with a professional writer. You want to make sure the basics of your writing are on point.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, those are my actionable ideas in terms of,
No,
pitches.
those are great. Well, I love that you said one thing, which Jimmy actually says to me and people on our team all the time, which is think like a journalist, like really put yourself in their shoes. And in order to do that, to your point, you have to do your research and know what they cover, what stories they're interested in, what they're writing about. And it goes such a long ways when you have that ability to personalize.
Absolutely. And I'll add to that the deeper you can go in on the specificity of the story angles. Like it's not enough to say you write about Schwab. Well, you can write about Schwab as an investment. You can write about Schwab with what they're doing as practice management. You can do
Yep.
Schwab in real estate. What's the real estate strategy? Where are they opening offices, right? So for a particular publication, look at what do they deem to be newsworthy
Yeah.
and go, okay, that is what they see as news, and you can almost reverse engineer it. It just requires a little more effort, but it's
Hmm.
very doable, I think.
Yeah. And all good
So,
relationships require effort.
Yeah. Mhm.
so I'm willing to bet that it's safe to say that you don't even get out of bed anymore for pitches surrounding holistic wealth management. We got to do better.
I mean, there's a bit of glazing of the eyes that begins,
No,
but
I
yeah, yeah. I mean,
I hear you.
Relatable.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
We have those same thoughts too when we're talking to prospective new clients and we ask them, what makes you different? Or, they'll often say, there's nobody out there like us.
yeah,
And I'll do an eye roll right there to them
yeah, yeah.
because, they need to pass the test of me, of us, so that
Mm,
I could properly convey what makes them different or semi-unique or truly unique to folks like you.
yeah.
Exactly, exactly.
So.
Yeah.
Well,
Well, on
I'm.
the pitch topic,
Hmm.
Greg, congratulations. We actually have 15 pitches for you to review right now live on the show.
All right, bring it on.
Plot twist. Oh
Yeah.
man. Well, I'm going to pivot us a little bit
Hmm.
because we also wanted to talk about the Barron's advisor events and their
Hmm.
summits, which are really
Yeah.
legendary in the space, and obviously feature elite advisors and teams that are redefining wealth management. Not just the holistic planning, but really going above and beyond. And given your seat, what's the most exciting part of your involvement with that?
Well, I will say, um, to cut to the chase, recording the podcast. That's where I record them for the past
Oh,
few years.
cool.
So I'll do on the second day, I'll be holed up in a studio for 6 hours, record six podcasts, one per hour. And that's an
Wow.
amazing creative rush and really exciting.
Can you
However,
imagine doing that, Jimmy? We're not
I
there
would,
yeah,
yet.
I'd
yeah.
need a couple egg sandwiches.
Yeah, but that's just a tremendous buzz. It's a lot of fun. And I do have the luxury of planning, so there's a long runway of figuring out the logistics. But then on that day, we're just in the studio, and so that's a lot of fun. But I would say, more broadly, the whole is incredible. I mean, you have a real rich community of amazing group of people, and like you see some of the faces year after year, but we have all these different summits. There's like, our women's summits, huge. Teams is really
Yeah.
big, and it's it's just fantastic. You learn so much. It's all about community. It sounds hokey, but all those things are true.
Yeah.
So yeah,
That makes sense with the culture you described of Barron's as well. It's like
yeah,
reflected in the events that they build.
yeah, exactly, exactly.
So,
So
so knowing how much time that you put in for preparing for the podcast hour with your guests,
mhm.
it's an easy assumption for us to think about that wealth manager or C-suite member. They're not spending as much time as you in front of the microphone with headphones on in a booth. Any takeaways in terms of getting somebody to feel at home and to get into the groove, the meat and the potatoes of the conversation a little bit more quickly?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really great question. I will first say that I think I often find a correlation in that sometimes, no, not always, sometimes the higher up in the food chain you go with the guest, sometimes they can be a little more conservative. They live a little more the corporate talking points, and it's a risk reward thing. So they're more about protecting the message. And if you're looking for authenticity and connection, it can be harder, but not that's certainly not the case for all of them. Many CEOs are very, exuberant, extravagant, interesting, and whatnot. But I think it's just there's an element of the term mirroring. You may have heard that as applied to interviews. Like if the person's interviewing for a job and they're kind of like, oh, this. Well, not that you should be like that, but lean into the part of you that's a little more energetic while being true to yourself. And if someone's a little
Mm-hmm.
more reserved, then you don't want to be flailing your arms. Like, be who you are, but maybe on the margins, tilt a certain way. So I try to do that. And very quickly, I find you can often read a person, and if especially if you get a prep call, and you can go on YouTube and watch videos, so you'll get a little bit of a sense. But I mean, there's only so much you can do. I think, like within reason, some people are naturally more frank than others, but I'm not sure I answered your question. Can you maybe repeat it or rephrase it if I say something of
No,
any?
I think you did answer it.
Did I? Okay.
It's about reading the room, i.e., the subject, and then
Hmm.
figuring out how you might want to approach them, I think is what
Hmm.
you're talking
Hmm.
about. And
Mm-hmm.
then also not just mirroring, but something we talk a lot about in at Street Cred is active listening.
Oh yeah, big, big,
Meaning,
100%.
yeah, like I'm trying to listen to you right now, Greg,
Yeah.
so that I can properly think about how to respond versus thinking, when is it my turn to talk and what am I going to say?
Yeah.
That's 100%. Sorry, go ahead, Elena. I mean, interrupt
No,
you.
I just agree totally. Listening to understand, not to respond.
100%. And another thing I find is like if you even if your inner monologue is thinking this person's a little bit dry, if you can really, if you want to say, trick yourself into believing, like just not hang on every word, but like really, really be in the moment, dignify every word they say,
Mm-hmm.
and import as much, you know, so anyway, all that comes together, and I do think that being in the moment and truly listening is incredibly important. That'll just take you so far, particularly for podcasting, but really in many aspects of life, probably. But
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, you do a lot. You do the newsletter, the podcast, The Way Forward, article writing, so much. What does the average day look like for you? And how do you navigate all these different responsibilities?
Well, my coffee is my constant companion.
Say that.
Yeah. Um, each day
Cheers.
the yeah, I just had it earlier. I had my pot of coffee. That's why I'm just doing water now. But if we had this in the morning, I'd have coffee.
Good call.
But each day is different. And I mean that quite literally in the sense that the arc of what I do. My newsletter goes out on Tuesdays, and Tuesdays kind of like, like the horse in Grand Central Park with the blinders on, that's me on Tuesday. And I just try to, Monday, Tuesday is the busy writing day. And then I actually start thinking heavily about an angle on Saturday and the weekend. So I have a little bit of trouble turning my mind off with work. It's always just bouncing around thinking of these things. Wednesdays are like heavy, heavy, heavy on meetings. Boom. And then Thursday, Friday are meetings, prep calls for podcasts, and then also just like longer term planning, other projects. And I do want to plug while we're here,
Yeah.
Barron's Advisor has a next gen podcast that we launched the beginning of the year. It's hosted by Allison Tucci, and she speaks with next gen advisors. And we define that loosely. It's not age dependent. It's more like, are you going to be working another decade in your career? So you could be
Okay.
30, you could be 40, maybe even 50. You just now you're suddenly running a book. But and it's just, similar mandate to the way forward, which is you're trying to help advisors, give them the best information ideas to run their practices better, more profitably, more efficiently. And then we do things on investing as well for my podcast too. But Allison's is largely practice management oriented, and that's been quite successful too. So
Awesome.
yeah, yeah.
What do you get more excited about? Practice management, wealth management, i.e., investments, or something else when it comes to our ecosystem?
Yeah, in a way investing, but I think they're very different. I like them both for different reasons. This might seem weird, but like what I like about investing is that it's like sports statistics. The numbers don't lie. You're
Mm-hmm.
right or you're wrong, and we can quantify it and there's nowhere to hide. And your numbers, they are what they are. So there's no bullshittery, nothing. It's like, and I just think that's great. And we all have access to the same information, and it's just to me incredibly fascinating how just how that all plays out. And then I think wealth management, what's so interesting is that there's so many inputs. As you know, it's not just about performance. Many clients might be about capital preservation. Everyone's at a different stage. Everyone has different goals. Wealth management includes things like personal chemistry, trust, marketing, reputation, all of these things, and they're often intangible, but they're all important. And whatever leads to success for one RIA, for example, will not work for another. So the answer for all of that is it depends, and I think that's endlessly fascinating as well. That's like it's more art than science. All these unknowns. So and investing though the unknowns too are also there. The end result is very quantifiable, but all the inputs it could be geopolitical things, interest rates, black swan events, whatnot. So that's my long rambling answer. Maybe I love them equally, but for different reasons. But the investing was more in my blood. That was more, most of my career was based on that. And then the wealth management part really for me began in earnest with RIA Intel, which is with part of Institutional Investor. And then my latest stint at Barron's, where I've been for the past 4 years.
Are you willing to share what kind of investor you are with the audience?
Yeah. I'm pretty, I'm pretty, I'm pretty, well, I say conventional in terms of a lot of indexing, we'll say that. But I also am open to different asset classes as well, not just like stocks and bonds. So, but yeah, I think, generally picking stocks is well, anyway, yeah. So generally an indexer, that's how I would categorize myself.
Got it.
Yeah.
Love it.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to take us into our play segment, pseudo rapid fire, but not too rapid.
Okay.
And I want to circle back to kind of what we were talking about at the beginning, and your passions as a kid. If it weren't journalism, what would you be doing? Did you have dream jobs as a kid in music or?
Yeah, the first thing would have been baseball player, like a lot of
Right.
kids of my age. That's hardly original. When I was younger, a veterinarian because I had a dog, love the dog.
Oh,
Now we have two dogs. So, but
sweet.
yeah, that's pretty much it, I would say. But yeah,
Okay, love
So
it. What
did
kind of
you,
dogs do you have?
we have a Havanese and a Peekapoo, and I grew up with a big German Shepherd. But the
Cute.
dogs are hypoallergenic. My wife and daughter are allergic to dogs, so it limited. Anyway, so
Limited options.
yeah, love them to bits. But yeah, that's why I don't. Yeah.
and why Baltimore?
Why Baltimore? Yeah,
Mm,
so I was born in DC, and we lived there in the Maryland until I was 4. And at the time, my eldest brother was an Orioles fan. Then we moved to New York, and his fandom for the Orioles trickled down to me. So I grew up here in New York, surrounded by Yankees and Met fans, but my whole life I've been an Orioles fan. So that's simply it.
it's a
Got it.
family business
The
of
family
supporting
thing.
the Orioles.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
So they were one of the first clubs to, I think, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but like to reinvent the stadium experience in terms
Yeah.
of what they built at what is it, Camden Yards, I
Camden
guess.
Yards, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was early
Um,
90s. It was tremendous, and it kind of set the template for all these modern knockoffs that try to have a retro feel. But Baltimore nailed it in the first time around.
yeah, beautiful place. I was there once. Um, and yes, I had some crab cakes while I was there because, of course,
As
lunch.
one does.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who's your favorite player?
You know, I'm a little bit, I don't have one, but I toggle between Brooks Robinson, the human vacuum cleaner, the third baseman for the Orioles, who played from the 50s to the 70s, and he's generally considered the greatest defensive third baseman of probably all time. Um, Cal Ripken and Jim Palmer. They're all class acts, and they all were with the Orioles for their whole career. And then also, I just, deeply, I love Hank Aaron, Willie Mays, whatever, a whole bunch of players, but the Orioles are usually my faves. And probably I would give the edge ultimately to Brooks Robinson because he like no one in the world has ever said a bad thing about the guy. And I read his a book about him, and he's just like from top to bottom, you could search the internet night and day. You will not find one bit of dirt or anything on him. So he was like a really,
Mm.
really decent guy. So
So you were talking earlier about your investing. I'd imagine that you've got a card collection that might be worth something.
An illiquid
well,
asset.
yeah, I mean anything good's in the bank in the safe deposit box, but I do it's mainly nostalgia. I've written about articles about it, and it's just a lot of fun. And as you know, like alternatives, collectibles, that's getting quite big, and I think it's going to have a probably a promising long-term future. But I'm a little bit surprised by how huge Pokemon cards have gotten. They're
Oh, I
like
wish
they've
I
got
had that binder still. Good
yeah,
gosh.
man, that's gotten so big. I don't get it. It's not my world, but whatever.
That was the thing for me growing up. Everyone had a
Yeah, yeah.
binder, cards. I don't know where mine is. Someone's making millions off of it somewhere.
Right.
Yeah. My baseball card collection is in shoe boxes downstairs in the basement and probably in some form of totally damaged due to leaks in the floor or flooding in the basement rather. So who knows what fortunes I might have had literally in my hand that are now gone.
Well, let me
But
ask you, do you know roughly what years they are? Like from what year
Ooh.
and before? Because I can rule out certain things if you tell me
yeah,
that.
no, I started probably around 82. I was about 70 years old and a lot of tops, some Fleer. I know I had some good rated rookie cards and but I didn't pay attention to the what kind of shape that the card was in, mint,
Yeah,
good, fair, until it was too late in the game.
yeah.
But anyway.
All right. Well,
What is your
yeah.
favorite thing to do for fun?
Um, I'm I'm really well. Music's kind of my thing. I used to write about it, used to make music, listen to music. Um, so yeah, anything kind of in the world of music's a big deal. I'm also a big record collector. My wife,
Ooh.
my wife calls it record hoarder. I beg to differ. Same thing with
The fine line.
cards. Yeah, hoarding. I'm like, no, but all seriousness, I like to I love curating. I know that word's a little overdone, but I really enjoy optimizing my collection and having it represent what I truly like. And it's like pruning a garden, you're like, get rid of that, add this, and and your priorities shift over time. So it's a project that's never done. It's always ongoing, and it's a great little escape from, you know, all that ails us in the world, such as whether people put ketchup on eggs or not.
Hmm.
So yeah,
The
fun
things
little
that
escape.
really upset. Yeah.
Exactly.
The issues of the day.
That's
What
right.
Right.
what genres do you love most?
Punk, rock, psychedelia, progressive rock, really like late 60s to early 80s is my general, I try to keep up with stuff, but I just feel like to me at least, to my ears, the best music that I like was from the late 60s to early 80s. Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah.
I
Awesome.
bet your Spotify is very dialed.
Yeah, I think so.
Now
All right.
wait, how often do you really lean into Spotify versus playing something on
Mm,
vinyl?
yeah.
That's a great question. It's more and more Spotify. Like it
Ah,
used to be a
okay.
lot more vinyl, but I have to admit that we're all kind of glued to our cell phones
Convenience.
and yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. But no, the vinyl, I do buy less. I mean, one interesting byproduct of having Spotify is pay like $20 for the family plan, okay, but I'm actually buying less physical music because I'm listening to stuff and going, not quite up to snuff. I'm not going to buy that record.
Mm,
Whereas in the old days, I'd be more inclined to take a leap of faith and be like, you could still sample it
totally.
on YouTube or whatever, but I'd be more willing to take chances. So I'm actually spending less probably. I'm more judicious about what I buy, but I still certainly buy and support the artist because I know Spotify does not do much for them on that count. So
Helps keep the hoarding under control.
It helps you. Yeah, exactly. That's right. That's right.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, we like to close the show, Greg, with a moment of gratitude.
Hmm.
Just give you the opportunity to shout out someone in your life, someone in the industry, really anybody who's made an impact on you.
Can I name two people?
Absolutely. No hard and
Okay.
fast rules here.
Sure. Okay. So I'll do one professional, one personal. The professional is to Jack Otter, who runs our team, and he's just done an amazing job. You know, running a really cohesive unit. In terms of our events have been a great success. We have like virtually no turnover on our team, and he has a great EQ and a great IQ. His background is in journalism, but he's really good with the business side. So he wears a whole bunch of hats, and he manages, with a real light touch, and is very considerate, and that when he asked me to come back, that made the decision a lot easier because I'd worked with him previously, so yeah, big hat tip and thanks to Jack. And then on a personal level, my mom, and not the most
Oh,
original answer, but hey, it's true. One in addition to just being a wonderful mom, exceptionally loving, nurturing, and supportive, etc. I'm gonna now harken back to the institutional investor. So when I started my first job 30 years ago, as I mentioned briefly before, I was really miserable and I was like, oh man, what have I got into? Like, I don't really, I'm in over my head. This is boring, and after it was like a week or two, and I just was like, this is not for me. And my mom said, she's like, well, she said, give it 90 days, give it 3 months, and then decide because you're just new to this. And she said, you've been doing all this freelancing for so long, you finally have a full-time job. Don't, think twice before you walk away from this. And I was like, okay. So then what I did is I went in, I bought the Wall Street Journal. It was print back then. This is 95. And I would go to the office an hour early every day and read the stories just to try to,
I love that.
jumpstart. Yeah. And bit by bit, not only did articles slowly make sense, but you would see cause and effect, and between articles, like, oh, if this goes down, that goes up, and there's almost a ripple effect. So previously, stories were kind of existed as discrete items in isolation that I didn't fully understand. And
Mm.
then over time, when everything started to click and I had these like mini epiphanies, it was almost as if it was like a constellation of stars where you see on a map when they're connected. I'm like, this relates to this. And that was that little tipping point where I was like, things suddenly became exciting, and I liked it, but it was, I didn't know that was going to happen. And once it did, I was kind of like, okay, I think I could, maybe make a career of this. So that's it.
That's
I love that.
I love it too. And that's something we talk about around here
Hmm.
often in terms of reading, and it's going to help you learn all of the moving parts, whether it's an asset management client, a wealth management, whatever. And it takes 3, sometimes longer, months, right? To
It does.
really understand the why about anything, and then how, you connected it to this goes up, that goes down.
Totally.
So that is a really powerful lesson for anyone that is getting into journalism or
Yeah.
PR, in my opinion.
Hmm.
Right. Stick to it, and the knowledge is foundational. It builds on it, but it's something like compound interest. Takes a long time, but then takes off, and can be like that with knowledge too. But
Yeah.
Totally.
So thanks to mom.
yeah.
Seriously.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Shout out.
exactly.
Thank you so much for joining us, Greg. This was so fun.
Oh, thank you. It's my pleasure. It was great.
We loved having you on the show.
Really,
Thank you.
really appreciate it. Thank you
No,
Yeah.
so much.
Yeah,
anytime.
this
Thanks
was
so much.
great.
And congrats. This is episode number 25 for you, right?
That's right. That's
That's
right.
a pretty big shiny number, right?
Absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely. Our lucky number 25 right here.
Mm.
Shout
Excellent.
out also to everyone listening in. Thank you so much. Feel free to reach out to us via pressplay@streetcredpr.com if you have questions, thoughts about eggs and ketchup. We're here for all of it. And don't forget to subscribe on YouTube or whatever you listen so you can catch our next episode. Thanks, guys. Thank you for listening to Press Play, the StreetCred podcast. Visit our website at streetcredpr.com and find us on Twitter and LinkedIn. Please don't forget to click the follow button to be notified when new episodes become available. And if you enjoyed the episode, we'd love nothing more than if you would rate and review the show. The information covered and posted represents the views and opinions of the guest and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of StreetCred PR. The content has been made available for informational, educational, and entertainment purposes only. If you have questions about the show or StreetCred PR, feel free to reach out to us. Thanks again for listening.